don't like calling you too much. Anyway, before we took the commercial break, I was asking you about public service. Because I know for sure you've given up certain positions to come for public service, which amounted to a pay cut.
Absolutely. Severe ones.
Severe ones as such.
Very severe.
What is in our psyche? What's in your psyche for you to focus on public service that way, whereas the general notion of the public service, go and,
Well, I had the honor and the privilege, which many Ghanaians will never have, because Kwame Nkrumah is dead. But when I was 9 years old, I was encouraged and eventually recruited into the Young Pioneers movement. This was a movement that Nkrumah established for young people, very deliberately young people whose minds were still fresh, whose minds were very open, and who he could inject all kinds of aspects of his own DNA into them. You know that after Nkrumah died, all kinds of accusations were leveled against him. He had stolen money, he had done this, he had done that. But today, there's not 1 square foot, 1 square meter of land in Ghana which belongs to Kwame Nkrumah. And indeed, his own children and his wife, Fatah, in those days, had difficulty finding a place to stay. It turns out that my father was also an Nkrumah appointee, and he was not even ready to build a house because Nkrumah had not built a house. So in our family, it was a big crisis. That how can my father be an ambassador, hold all kinds of positions, the first African to be a deputy director at Ghana Broadcasting in those days, and he hadn't built a house. Because he said until Nkrumah builds a house, he doesn't see why he could build one for himself. So we grew up with that kind of an environment. And so eventually, my father was prevailed upon to build a certain outhouse, which he lived in until he died. And so I grew up with that mindset that the purpose of life is to serve. But others can have other purposes. Nothing wrong with those who want to make money or who want to do other things. But my view is that do it legitimately and do it properly. I've made a lot of people millionaires who I don't know at all. I never met them. Their documents came to my office as minister. I just signed them if they were worthy of being approved, and they went out. And they got their contracts and they got their leases, and they didn't come back to me, and I didn't ask who they were. But that's a very difficult thing for most people to do, because it's, and of course, having Christian principles, you won't get many people to be an ambassador, to be a minister of government, where you're supposed to have made all kinds of money. And then when you finish, you go and serve God directly as a chief of staff of a church, or later as chief executive officer of the church. Because the job of the chief of staff and chief executive officer is very, very basic. Some might even say menial. You supervise people, you take care of the pastors and their requirements, their appointments, their pay, but you also have to take care of the church premises, facilities. How the chairs are being arranged, whether the toilets are clean, the security available, places where people are going to park. How many ministers, because I'm called all kinds of names by those who don't know me, but all those who may call me names, how many of them are willing to go and do those kinds of jobs, which are often voluntary, often sacrificial, in many cases without a salary, but because you think these are things that must be done. So I've done all those things, and if there's now a position of leadership, people are saying that we want morally right people to come into leadership. They want people with integrity to come into leadership, because some people make politics so dirty that if you're wearing white clothes, you don't want to get near it because they'll splash their dirt on you. And so people are made to run away and they're frightened to get into politics. So you do need to have a certain amount of courage, you need to have a certain amount of belief and faith, and you need God's abundant blessing in order to have the unction to feel like going forward and offering yourself in this, what I expect to be a leadership of sacrifice, and also a servant leadership style of management.
What is Ekwow going to do very differently? Say you win the bid, you are president of Ghana. What dramatic changes should we expect?
I have a number of ideas, but remember that what I will do is subject to what the party that I represent will also have to agree to do. It's not one person's agenda. So I have an agenda, I have some specific ideas, but it has to be presented to the party as a whole. But let me just throw out this, because I've spoken about this on many platforms. Let's take the two most important natural resources of Ghana until oil came along. I think after the Europeans have gone all over the world, they decided that this little piece of land, let's call it the Gold Coast, because there's a lot of gold here. And then later on, Tete also reportedly went to then Fernando Po, today Equatorial Guinea, and came back with some cocoa seedlings, and we became a cocoa producing and exporting country. Now let's ask ourselves, when was the last time you heard of or spoke to a goldsmith? When we were growing up as young people, there was a profession called goldsmith. Nobody talks about a goldsmith anymore, but these were jewelry makers. And the profession of goldsmith has died out because most of our gold is exported in raw form to wherever it's going. I'm looking forward to the leader, even if it's not me myself, and even if it's done by Nana Akufo-Addo or by after stopping Galamsey. It's one thing to stop Galamsey. It's another thing to convert most of our gold into jewelry. Under Ekwow Spio-Garbrah as leader of the Republic of Ghana, Ghana will become the jewelry making capital of Africa. Our gold will be converted into jewelry. And just move that distance, because the gold is here. And jewelry making does not require a room bigger than this. It requires a table and a few things, if you know the skills and the equipment and the machines. So why haven't we trained our secondary school leavers and our vocational school leavers in jewelry making? Just one possible idea. Because if you did that, because the raw material is already here. And for the good news in Ghana is that after more than 500 years, since Don Diego da Zambuja and others landed on the shores of Elmina and began trading gold, we have still not exploited, according to various sources, more than 35% of Ghana's overall gold resources. So there's still some gold in the ground. We don't need to allow Chinese and Indians to come and dominate that industry. We want Ghanaians to have the ownership of that gold. You want to make sure that Galamsey, if that is what people call it, is regularized in terms of people having mining leases, proper documentation, environmental protection measures. But the gold, most of it should stay here. And let us convert it into jewelry. And you see that 1 ounce of gold may be $1,200. But if you convert that 1 ounce of gold and it is put on the fingers of KSM because of your popularity and your fame, that jewelry becomes worth $10,000 or $15,000. If you give it to Asha or you give it to Kardashians, maybe $100,000 because of branding and marketing and promotion, which by God's grace is one of the professions I learned very early. At the age of 22, I was already in the second largest advertising agency in Ghana. By the time I was 25, I was the general manager of the agency. And so I grew up promoting a lot of products in Ghana. So that's just one.
Yeah,
Let's go to the other second one, cocoa, chocolates. We are also a major cocoa producing country, but most of our cocoa goes out as raw beans. By God's grace, there are about 10 cocoa processing plants in Ghana, some of which don't always get enough cocoa beans to process. But assuming they all got cocoa beans to process, they'll produce cocoa cake, cocoa oil, cocoa butter, and export that as well. We need to move to that next stage.
Yeah.
Even though chocolate is not, it's not a product that, and it's not a necessity, but it's still maybe a luxury product. But people like to buy it. And that's why Switzerland and Belgium, for example, as two European countries, and of course Britain and France and others, have all built their economies to a large extent on chocolate. Yeah, why have we all gone to school and not been trained in any aspect of chocolate making? Yeah. Somebody doesn't want us to know how to make chocolates. Yeah. Okay.
I'm listening to you and I'm impressed, as I'm sure many people are, and say, yeah, this is it. We should be doing this. This is it. You know. Right. But the point is,
but we don't
the
do
implementation.
No,
it always sounds good from every.
But the
how are you going to get them implemented?
It's the prioritization. You see, every government has priorities. In your family, you have priorities. In this studio, you have priorities. You must decide that of the money that is going to Export-Import Bank of Ghana, X% must go into cocoa processing or chocolate making or jewelry making or not. You see, if you don't do that, then it's not going to go there. And you must also decide that the content of the educational curriculum, that every child of school-going age must not graduate from JSS or SHS without having learned something about the cocoa industry and the chocolate making and the jewelry making, because that is where our livelihood will be for the next 100 years as Ghanaians. So those are policies you can take. Those are policies you can implement. They don't sound as elaborate and as, vote catching maybe as free SHS or free this and free that. But that is where the reality is. We must change what goes into the minds of our people as well. The content of education must change, and the content of our attitudes to our country must change. We were taught civics as a subject in school. We didn't take exams in it. It was a non-examinable subject. But you sat in a class for 1 hour and somebody taught you civics, which helped you to understand your civic responsibilities. You learn to be a nationalist, a patriot. It doesn't exist. So everybody is free for all. Let's all make money and God for us all. Yeah. You have to introduce some of these things back into the classrooms.
But as you said, rightly said, that you said they may not be vote-catching ideas.
Right.
Right? Vote-catching goes with promises, elaborate ones.
Right. In some cases. In some cases. But remember,
how do you change the mindset?
Sometimes people say that, well, even when we're going to choose a flag bearer, we have to choose someone who has been marketed already. Somebody has not been marketed. I had the privilege, I just said it, with the support of President Mahama, then my deputy, to convince Ghanaians in an 18-month period to accept a very difficult concept called value-added tax, which people thought would explode the economy and was not good. And within 18 months of very, very structured professional communications, we got all Ghanaians to accept that VAT actually was good. That was between 1997 and 1998. And when VAT was reintroduced in December 1998, not a pin dropped and people all rushed. Even those who were not eligible were rushing to, to subscribe. Because we taught them things that they didn't know. That if you are a VAT-registered business, you know that you actually collect money that belongs to the government and you keep it for 45 to 60 days before you pay it. So it's as if government has given you an interest-free loan as a businessman. So there's always some knowledge that one can transfer to people. And I'm just saying to you that while implementation can be a challenge, if you don't come with a mindset that you are there to reward 110 ministers and create ministries that are not necessary, and create deputies and deputies for each of the ministries and special assistants, and you go to the central bank, not only do you remove the governor, you remove the two deputies. You go to many other government institutions, you remove the entire top layer and replace them with your own people. You are simply bastardizing the entire public service and making it difficult for people with experience and people with knowledge and who are professionals. They didn't come there as political appointees. They've been in the same place, Bank of Ghana, 20 years. And they're told to go home because somebody wants to bring somebody else. Those kinds of things at the Water River Authority, at the Cocoa Board, and wherever else is going on, undermines the effectiveness of the economy. So if you bring very wonderful ideas, but the human beings are not even there to implement it, how are you going to get them implemented?
What will you do if you are also facing a similar situation?
Which similar
that point? People who have been appointed are tacked with
I'm saying that there has been an understanding until this government that the top person who recognizes himself as a political appointee, he became a chief executive officer of a public organization. He himself knows when the government changes that he's going. But MPP under President Ekwow have gone to the next level of management. And this is rather poisonous because then you put other incoming governments in a quandary. If the person is not qualified to be there, but they got there just partly or mainly because of political appointment.
And this is the first time it's happening in our nation?
At the director and deputy level. It wasn't there before. In fact, under President Kufuor, he introduced deputy ambassadors. You see, when I was ambassador to the United States, my deputy was a foreign service officer, not a political appointee. And no deputies existed in Ghana's missions overseas. But now President Kufuor, he brought political appointees, put them in the embassies as deputy ambassadors who had no knowledge of diplomacy and often misbehaved. But it also then undermined the effectiveness of the foreign service because foreign service officers who felt they could have been promoted to these deputy positions or even to ambassadorial positions ended up having to hold, to treadmill, just stay in one place. So it's a challenge. And look at the Electoral Commission. Again, if one person at the Electoral Commission was deemed to be not performing their task, and you even had to remove that person. But it's a wholesale removal so that the whole place can be colored a certain way. And you could do that to the Supreme Court. You could do that to many other institutions of state, which then undermines the effectiveness of a democracy. And if the other side get very militant and very angry about these things, then all kinds of funny things can happen in any country. So we are appealing to the government. You've won an election. Run the economy. Let people see improvements in their livelihoods. Let the hospitals work. Let the police, maintain law and order and not shoot people at in execution-style murders, as seems to have taken place in Kumasi recently. And let people have their water and their electricity and let them do their business. That's what most Ghanaians, I think, really want.
Yeah. In the interest of Ghana, if you were to advise Nana right now, if you have a few thoughts that you thought he would benefit from, what would it be?
I think I've already said more than enough. People say, but why are you saying these things when your government is not in power? They will take it from you. And I say, no, I'm a nationalist.
Yeah.
I'm a patriot. My interest is Ghana. So if anybody can do something that I think I could do, and they can do it better, I'll clap for them.
If you called you right now,
sorry?
The president called right now and wanted to give you...
No, it won't work.
It won't?
No, because you must
he won't call you, he call you, but you won't do it.
He won't call me, but he knows me very well. But the fact is that, you see, you must have a team whose philosophy you believe in. I don't believe in the philosophy of the NPP and the way they go about their governance. Property owning democracy, for all Ghanaians, yes, but not property owning democracy, which means that the leadership of the NPP will literally take over as many lands in cantonments, Alaboni and Airport Residential as they can lay their hands on, starting from Kufuor's time, continuing through this time, and selling it to themselves at, rock bottom prices. You know about the case of Obeche Bilamti, who was given almost an acre of land opposite the Mormon church. That particular bungalow had been occupied by more than 20 ministers since Kwame Nkrumah's time. If every government which came and sold government bungalow land to their ministers, which government will come and find any bungalows for public servants to live in? So I had, when I was a Minister of Trade and Industry, my civil servants all lived very far away, at Denta, Kaswa and all that, because most of the bungalows that were intended for public servants, to allow them to come to work early in the day and close late if they have to, and which were in the Ridge Enclave, and some went as far as Roman Ridge and Airport Residential, had all been privatized and sold to individual developers. And now you have an oversupply of high value, high-priced apartments and villas, empty, while most Ghanaians are struggling to get a room and chamber and hall at a reasonable price without having to do 2 years in rent in advance and all that long-term money that people are capturing. So there's a lot that one can do in the housing area. I won't give you all my secrets today. There's a lot that one can do. But I was also a mortgage banker in the United States. I gave lots of loans as a banker to people who wanted to buy houses. So I understand quite a bit about that sector as well. Even I don't say much about it.
Okay. So we've done a lot of the politics, and it's for sure Spio is running, there was never an endorsement for President Mahama.
I have appreciated him as a former president, as a leader of this country, and I'm inclined to say what he's done well, because what he has not done well is also in the public domain. So I leave it to our critics to point out what we didn't do well as part of the government.
Let's look at the other side of a coin. Your family, you're married with 3 kids, I think, or 4?
4 kids.
4, okay.
Not currently married, but I was married for 36 years. And the kids are grown up, so they are in their 30s. The oldest became 40 just this year. Then the youngest about 31. And
it's funny you still call them kids, things.
That's true. as long as we are fathers, all our children will always be kiddos and kids. So Toronto,
what do you do for fun? Do you like dance? Do you sing?
I've got a few career aspirations, and I actually hoped to be a singer one day, but my voice just doesn't. You
wanted to be a singer?
You see that the singers of NDC, some of them, they've started dying, Juelaka and others. So we don't have anybody to really compose songs. So I've had to start composing some of them.
Really?
You know the Nanado Adadami song.
You composed that?
Yeah. Nanado Adadami. Oh. Bawumia Adadayen. MPP ADN. Arehua. Yeba Betu.
That's your composition?
That's my composition. Another one is Da Nasi, Da Nasi, Da NDC Asi, Da Nasi, Da Nasi, Da NDC Asi. Efri se onimi yo nani puntu jumaso edosu. Da Nasi, Da Nasi, Da NDC Asi.
When do you write this?
Anymore? Dreams.
There's more
to come.
So that's your
I have a new album. I'll be a performing artist one of these days. By God's grace, always by God's grace. I've got a number of talents. I could have been an artist, pure artist.
Really? As in painting and drawing?
Painting and drawing, if I wanted to do that. I was a top sportsman in terms of racket games when I was in secondary school. I was a top tennis, ping pong player, lawn tennis player. I moved to badminton and racquetball and squash. Anything with the ball and the bat, I do reasonably well.
You do any sport now?
University of Ghana, I was a volleyball player, gold medalist, West African University Games.
Really?
I did.
What about now? Are you currently doing any?
Ping pong is what I still do from time to time.
Yeah.
But I still do it, some treadmill, and do my best in some press-ups and all kinds of other body twitching exercises.
Yeah.
I get on the dance floor once in a while, and I think I've been told that I perform above average.
What's your favorite song that you dance to?
The Niger songs are very powerful, though.
The Niger songs?
The Niger Ghanaian type, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the names, but, you know, the Sarkodie does his part, and then, you know, I've seen all these artists. I wish I could name them.
Yeah, but can you at least sing a tune? You have a tune on your lip?
I wish I could say that, but I wouldn't venture in that area. If you play the music, you had the music here, and your floor was sufficiently good for moving around, I would have shown you a few steps.
Okay, we'll do that.
Another day. I've done that in one of the studios not too long ago.
Oh, really?
It was quite it was, you know, viral. Very serious. You know, in secondary school, we had form parties, as they call it, where it was a boy and girl school. So the boys, the girls. And so we had to do something with each other. And the dancing floor was the assembly hall. In those days, James Brown was very hot. So everybody had to learn the James Brown moves. And James Brown came with different steps. Every piece of music came with its own movement.
What's your favorite James Brown?
Oh, I don't need nobody to get me nothing. Just open up the door and I get it myself.
Yeah.
That's one of his songs.
Yeah.
I'm Black and Proud was another one.
Yeah.
And Papa's got a brand new bag, you know.
But they cut it in. You're going back in the day.
And of course, when I moved for graduate studies into the United States and I ended up working in New York City, in New York City, you got to put down, as they say.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go to a dance floor and, you know, these Afro-American men and women are very good at music, dancing, and all of that. If you go to the dance floor and you're not performing, the guy will just go and sit down and leave you stranded. So you learned how to, you know, pick up your steps.
To do the boogie.
And get going, yes.
Share it about, man! Oh, my good friend. It's really been good hanging out with you, and sharing your thoughts and, you know, letting the whole Ghana know that, no, you're going for the thing. And
I live only one life.
Yeah.
And God hasn't told us how each of our lives will end. And when I was younger, I told other people, in fact, not too recently at a function, I said all of us have to write our obituaries and then live towards the obituary.
What's yours?
So my obituary is leadership of Ghana and following up and picking up on all the pieces of all our former leaders, because every former leader has made a contribution. And one of the pains that I incur is seeing that some leaders don't want to respect the contributions of other leaders. But all the from Nkrumah, even the coup makers like Achampo, President Feed Yourself. It was a successful agricultural program. Why hasn't any other president after Achampo mentioned Operation Feed Yourself as something that could be done? Because all these secondary schools, they get a free SHS. But they also required, now that you are getting education free, to at least make sure that you have a school farm that produces your tomatoes and your onions and your yams and plantains of your education. Nobody's telling them that. So they are still there waiting for money to come from Accra. And the money is not coming on time. They are starving. Water is not flowing. They are overcrowded. There's a report out recently, terrible report. There are some schools with 150 people in one classroom. And other very prominent schools even have 80, 90 people in one classroom. People sleeping on the floors in between other people's beds. Some have no beds at all. They're on mattresses. And some are getting, I'm sorry to say, sexually violated, and others because people who should be in dormitories have gone to schools where there are no dormitory spaces. So they've gone to live in hostels and other makeshift accommodations in town. And they're only teenagers, 12 to 17, 18. People are taking advantage of them. These are all the side effects of free SHS, which must be looked at carefully.
Okay. Sadly, we have to end it, man. But it was great hanging out with you. And
a pleasure.
I'm sure people have heard your ideas. They are making their minds.
There
are many more to come.
And knowledge networks is the other one. I'll talk about this another day. How to network the knowledge of the 2 million Ghanaians in the diaspora with those who are
knowledge network.
People who are very smart and brilliant. Fantastic.
Put your hands together for him one more time.
Jersey, you have a brother there.
Yeah.
We used to hang out once. He didn't tell you.
Okay, I'll tell him. I was talking to you today. Okay, man. By the way, I also have a tree. It's not like a tree version of a KSM show, but it's a great show in tree called Bombing Komo. I think I'd like to have you on it.
I was so delighted.
Yeah?
So pleased.
Okay.
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible. Okay, stick around, man. We're going to get him on Bombing Komo. No make a tree.
Make a fancy.
Make a fancy. Enjoy. Make a fancy. Ata. We shall be right back.
KSM Show.